this is like my personality trait now. Like I live in London. Very posh. That's how I would describe him, posh. He was definitely very nerdy, which is not necessarily my usual type. I think you guys know from my stories, I tend to go for the fuckboys. Wait, but like, I don't know, this sounds so bad, but like I like you, but I don't like you enough to travel like that far. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lo, and today's video is a Fella Friday video. So Fella Friday is the series on my channel where I talk about a different kind of fella or boy each Friday that I've encountered in my dating life. So today's Fella Friday is about the British guy. So for those of you who don't know, I moved to London. I swear this is like my personality trait now, like I live in London. But I moved to London in September for a master's program, and obviously I had to explore the dating scene in London. Let me know if you guys want to have like a video about differences in dating like in London and other places, or like my dating experiences in London. They have been limited because of COVID, obviously. But I do have a few stories that I can tell, and I want to talk about like one British guy that I dated while I was in London. So again, kind of disclaimer here, this was in September, so when COVID was like a bit better, you were allowed to meet up indoors with people outside of your household. So like I wasn't breaking any rules with this guy. Like you were allowed to see people that you weren't living with. Obviously the rules now have changed because things are worse again, but at the time like it was all okay. So I met this guy on Hinge, a dating app. I definitely prefer Hinge in London. I think Tinder is really intense. Like when I had Tinder in London, I got a lot of messages right away, like down to fuck, like are you looking for a hookup, stuff like that, like very direct. And I've just noticed that Hinge in general is a bit more serious, and there were a lot of guys on Hinge in London, so definitely prefer Hinge in London. So I met him off Hinge, and I definitely was like, wow, he's like attractive. He definitely had like a very British look, like glasses. Even his name, I'm obviously not going to say his name, but it was a very like British name. I was like, okay, wow, I'm down. And me and this guy were just like messaging, and I was telling him that I had literally just moved to London and I'd spent 2 weeks in lockdown, and I had like 3 more weeks till my master's program started, so I barely knew anyone in London. I was kind of looking for just stuff to do to explore the city. So I was telling him, but I just moved to London and I'd been spending like all my time kind of exploring. Also, how many times can I say London in this story? But he was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, what else do you want to do? So I sent him like kind of some stuff on my bucket list. And I was like, yeah, this weekend I want to explore Hampstead Heath, which is basically this area in northern London, I believe. So like the northeast of London. And basically it's like this really like nice affluent area, and they have this really big like park. So I was like, oh, I kind of want to explore that this weekend. He was like, oh, do you want some company? I'm like, yeah, that would be great. So we decided to meet up on like a Sunday at like 10:30 a.m, which I'm very much like, my usual date is like drinks at night or like maybe a movie or something, but never really like a dater. I mean, I've gone for like coffee with guys before, but this is like a morning date. So we decided to meet outside of the, well, this was actually kind of funny. He was like, yeah, let's meet at the station. So I took the overground there and he took the tube. And he was like, I was like, yeah, I'm outside. I was like waiting. I was like, I can't see him. And he was like, yeah, wait, so am I, like, where are you? And I was like, there's only one like exit, like you know, like what? And he was just like, oh wait, you're at the overground, I'm at the tube, like I have to walk down to you. And I was like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. But he's like, no worries, I'll walk down to you. So there's someone outside my window. Technical difficulties. Okay, sorry about that. They finally left. I'm sorry if the camera also skewed a little bit. But yeah, so he's like, no worries, I'll walk down. So he walks down to where the overground is. And when I saw him, I was like, whoa, he's really tall, which, I mean, I'm used to dating like tall guys because in the Netherlands, like guys are tall in general. But in London, I've noticed like on Hinge, it usually says height, and like guys are a lot shorter than they are in the Netherlands, obviously. So I was really impressed that he was like really tall. I was like, wow, okay. And he was wearing like, it's just like so different. He was wearing like this kind of trench-ish coat, and he was wearing like a button down and like a sweater under it, like very posh. That's how I would describe him, posh. And like some like khaki like chinos and like Chelsea boots, and I was like, wow, like you really like look good. I felt like really underdressed. I was wearing like jeans and like booties. But yeah, so we met up and we decided to go walking through Hampstead Heath. and it was super, super nice. I really like that area. I've only been there once, but I definitely, when I'm back in London and things are open again, I want to go back. And we're just kind of like walking through the streets. He's like, hey, should we get some breakfast, coffee? So we go to Le Pain Quotidien. Le Pain Quotidien? I don't know, I never know how to pronounce that, but it's a chain that like we both knew, and we were like, yeah, let's sit outside. The weather was really beautiful for September, like a perfect fall day. So we're sitting outside and we're like talking. He had just finished his PhD and was like applying for jobs, stuff like that. And we really like hit it off. He was definitely very nerdy, which is not necessarily my usual type. I think you guys know from my stories, I tend to go for the fuck boys, but like I actually liked how nerdy and like intellectual, and he was really curious about like what stuff that I was doing with my master's and like what I was interested in. He also was really into politics, which can either go both ways. It can either be amazing or awful, but like we had like really, you know, like hefty political debates, and like we very much were like bantering and giving each our like own opinion. And like, I don't know, I love on a date when you can actually like have an opinion and kind of argue, like not argue like fight, but like at least kind of spar about your ideas. And it was very much like that. It was like, okay, we can spar about our ideas, which was great. So after we had coffee and croissants, he paid. He was like, oh yeah, should we like walk around a little bit more and then go to like Hampstead Heath Park? And I was like, that's great. So right as we're about to leave, it starts raining. So we're like, oh shit, like what do we do? So we end up going to a pub. And this was also really fun because we just sat at a pub and drank a bunch of beer. And it was funny too because he was like mocking my beer choices because I don't know British beer. So I like ordered the first thing like on the menu, which is like Foster's, which wasn't really good. Just like a, I think it's like a lager, but again, I don't know beers. But and again, we're like really hitting it off, really connecting. And I think we were there until like late, like mid late afternoon, like 3 or 4ish. So definitely really hit it off. But like I said, not really my usual type. Like I loved the conversation. I loved like how smart he was, how interested he was, but it was very, it felt very platonic to me. And I think this might be either me going for like a different type of guy that's not like outwardly sexual or like flirtatious, or it might be British. I'm not sure. I haven't dated enough British guys, I think, to know. But it was like very polite, and I was like, we can flirt a little bit too, you know? But I think their idea of flirting is like having like a little bit of banter, but it wasn't cheeky at all. Like it wasn't flirty or anything, or like not even sexual, but like some like sexual undertones. It was very much just like, oh, so that's your opinion, huh? And kind of like sparring on that. So I was like, well, you know, it was really fun, but it also was kind of like, didn't feel super romantic. So at the end of the date, he had to like meet up with friends in London, and I was like going home, and we ended up, well, we walked around Hampstead Heath a little bit after that as well. And he was like, oh yeah, like I really would love to see you again. And he lived like, he told me right outside of London. He was like, I would love for you to come see like my town sometime. And I was like, oh, that's so great. Like I would love to, you know, I want to see more of the UK anyway. And at the end of the day, like we walked back to the tube station. And okay, so this was like the awkward thing about COVID, because you're also like kind of weird about kissing people. You have like your mask in your hand. I don't really know. So we didn't kiss. We like hugged, and I kind of feel like I would have been down if he would have tried to kiss me, but he didn't try. So I like, you know, I didn't initiate it myself either. He was also really tall, which girls know, like it's so awkward to initiate the kiss when the guy's tall because you're like standing on your tippy toes like, kiss me. But yeah, so literally we leave. I'm like walking back to like my tube, and he like texts me right away like, hey, it was so great to meet you. Like I would love to see you again sometime. So we text a little bit in the days after that, but he's not a very good texter. He told me that from the beginning, like he doesn't have social media, like he's just not into that stuff. He wasn't that, I think he was like 26, he wasn't that much older, but he just like really is, like I said, really like nerdy and stuff like that, but not into like social media or anything like that. And I'm not using nerdy in a negative way, like he was super like sweet guy, but he was definitely like, if you have alpha and beta guys, he was a beta guy. And so I hate using those terms, but yeah. So he's like, yeah, like when do you want to, you know, get together again? But he was kind of like, oh, well, when you like come to my town, you probably would have to like stay here, but not in like a creepy way. But he's just like, yeah, like we could go to the pub and you could like sleep here, like on the couch, whatever you're comfortable with. Because he sent me like his town name, because I kind of agreed like, oh yeah, next time, like, of course, let's go to your town. Sounds good. I thought it was, he was like, it's right outside of London. So I was like, oh, maybe like 30 minutes by tube, like max, because obviously London is big. It takes a while to get, like even getting to Hampstead Heath took me like half an hour. So I'm like looking up this town, how to get there, and it would take me like an hour and a half by train. So that means he traveled an hour and a half to go on a date with me, which I didn't even know. And I was like, wait, but like, I don't know, this sounds so bad, but like I like you, but I don't like you enough to travel like that far. I don't know, that sounds so bad, because it was really sweet, but I just like, it kind of like broke it for me. I was like, I don't want to spend the whole weekend like with this guy. Like, I don't know, I just didn't feel, I would rather like, I would definitely want to explore it more. Like I would have loved to go on like one date and like have drinks again and see if there was more of a like flirtatious connection instead of just a platonic one. But I wasn't down to like go on, I don't know, go and like travel to see him and stay there. Like it just didn't, I don't know, I just had this feeling like it's not for me. So basically he asked me to hang out and I kind of just dodged it because I was like, yeah, I genuinely was meeting people for my course that weekend. I was like, I'm meeting people for my course, I'm not really sure. And then he just never really texted again. So I kind of got like out of it in a way. Yeah, because I just like, I don't know, I guess that's good too, because I'm someone who like very romanticizes things. So I'm very much like, oh yeah, if like a guy asks me out, like I have to give him a second chance, I have to give him a second date, like, oh, because who knows, he like, it might actually be different, which I think there's definitely something to be said for giving someone like a chance and like seeing if something develops. But I also think like you kind of have a gut feeling, and my gut was telling me like, okay, this guy is, I don't like him enough to travel an hour and a half to see him, which means I probably don't like him enough to date him. So yeah, that was basically the end of that, but he was literally a true gentleman. What I loved about him, he was so like preppy, posh, British. I definitely felt like I was totally on a date with a British guy, and just like, I really loved the way we talked. Actually, I mean, I know that I kind of make jokes now like, oh, he was nerdy, but he was so respectful, really cared about my opinion. We could really like banter, and like he was respectful, but he also had like his own opinion. Like he definitely told me like, oh, I don't agree with this, which I love it when a guy can tell me like, hey, I don't agree with what you're saying. So yeah, so it was definitely a good date. Maybe I should date like more nerdy guys more often. He was like a history major as well, so maybe I should go more for that. But definitely a true British gentleman, and it was definitely it was a good first date in London. Like that's what I'll say. It was definitely a good first date, but just wasn't really interested in pursuing that more. The funny thing is he did actually text me on New Year's Eve this year, which I thought was kind of crazy. He was like, hey Lois, like happy New Year's, would love to get together again sometime if you're in London. And I was like, oh yeah, well I'm in Amsterdam right now, like yeah, maybe we could like meet up again in London. And he was kind of texting me like, oh yeah, totally understand, like let me know when you're back in London, or maybe we can like call sometime. And I was like, yeah, we can definitely like catch up. But then again, he like never texted me again after this, so I don't know if this guy like is just not like that good at like, I don't know, dating, or if he's just not that interested. Like in the moment he's like, oh, I'll text her that I want to see her again, or I'll text her that I like, you know, even after that date, like I'll text her that I want a second date, but then didn't really pursue it more. And I do, again, it's not like a chase, but you do kind of like someone putting in that effort. But I guess that goes both ways, because I didn't want to put in the effort to travel an hour and a half to see it. So I don't know, no really tips for this one. I just thought it was interesting. I definitely, when I get back to London, want to date more in London, hopefully, fingers crossed, COVID permitted, because I really want to like learn some more about British guys and dating. And what I have noticed is that like guys are a lot, I've been on a couple dates in London, and guys definitely plan a lot more than in Amsterdam. In Amsterdam it's very typical, like, okay, just drinks at like a local bar, totally fine. But here, like I said, the guy, he like planned that we were going to go around Hampstead Heath because I said that I wanted to do that and like stuff like that, and that was very cute. And the other 2 dates I've been in London, they've also planned like, the other few dates I've been on London, they've also planned stuff like really nicely. So hopefully I'll tell those stories again sometime soon. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Let me know if you have any tips for dating British guys, anything I need to know. And I will see you guys again soon with a new Fella Friday video and a new regular video. I'm trying to post back on Tuesdays and Fridays, so I'm back. Let me know what you thought in the comments, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye!